Oh, hi. Mark here from Cinemondo. I have been crazy busy with work, and so I apologize for not doing some of these reviews the last few weeks. But I wanted to get a couple in quick today before I get back to all my craziness. Saw a couple of movies actually last night to talk about opposite ends of the spectrum. We're going to talk about one of those today, and that is the Lee Cronin horror film Evil Dead Rise. If you know anything about Cinemondo background, and you should, uh, Kathy and Burke and I met while we were working at Turner Broadcasting in Atlanta many years ago. And when we would go to lunch in this conference room, have our lunch there. And I had mentioned that I had seen Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, the night before, and just was blown away by it. And immediately Kathy and Burke perked up, and we just had started having this discussion about how great that film was. And then that started our friendship and our love of movies together. So whenever an Evil Dead movie comes out, and since Evil Dead 2, there was Army of Darkness, Burke and myself are in that film briefly as extras or background actors, throwing a styrofoam rocks at Ash as he's on on the stockade as he's being ready to be tortured. So Army of Darkness, which was fun, but a different kind of film certainly than Evil Dead 2 or the original Evil Dead. And then there was the 2013 The Evil Dead, which was great, super gory and violent. And then this is the latest one called Evil Dead Rise, which is currently on Max, written and directed by the Irish director Lee Cronin, who did The Hole in the Ground, which is a really good, creepy, atmospheric Irish horror film that I highly recommend. If you haven't seen it, you should, because it's quite good. So Lee Cronin knows how to direct a movie, and he does a great job with this film. It stars Lily Sullivan, Alyssa Sutherland, Morgan Davies, Gabriel Eccles, and Lily Sullivan is the hero who is trying to fight off the baddies that invade this family in this beat up high rise apartment. I'm thinking of Los Angeles, but let's be honest, it's not in any real world. This is not an apartment building that is in the real world, much like the cabin in the Evil Dead films really is not in the real world. It's just not. It's just sort of staged place. And aside from a prologue, which is actually really an epilogue, that's the prologue of the film. You'll understand when you see it. The rest of the movie takes place in this apartment, this really beat up, horrible apartment complex, this high rise built like in the 30s. And this family lives there. Alyssa Sutherland plays the mom, and she's got three kids, and she's got a sister who's played by Sullivan. And they meet up early in the film, and they're trying to reconcile differences as sisters can do, while the family's just living their life in this weird apartment. It's just a weird place for any family to be living in. It's going to be demolished in a month, so pretty much everybody's out of there. There are a few other tenants on the floor that are sort of other characters in this film briefly, but most of it takes place in the apartment. And Alyssa Sutherland, one of her kids actually, there's an earthquake. Okay, there's an earthquake. So this takes place in Los Angeles or San Francisco. I'm guessing Los Angeles, hard to figure, but it's shot in New Zealand with an Irish crew. Okay. Um, so so it's all that kind of makes it kind of a weird vibe, which is good. But there's an earthquake, and one of the kids, the boy, being one of those classic horror characters, what are you doing, you moron? There's a hole in the garage, the underground garage, and he looks down and he sees an old bank vault. This was built over an old bank vault. He goes down there, of course, rummaging around. He looks into the vault and he sees this package that's wrapped up. He of course takes it out, and of course it's the Book of the Dead. Hence The Trouble. Of course, there's also some records, some 78s. He plays those because he's a DJ, and Kandar and all that kind of stuff starts happening. And the demons invade, and they invade the mother, played by Alyssa Sutherland. And she's great. She has this very expressive, big, wide face and a mouth that's just like, you know, when she grins, you know, and that maniacal grin, it works. And the rest of the movie is just gory fun. You know, I enjoyed it, and I like Lee Cronin as a director, and the movie works in a lot of ways. But since Evil Dead is such hallowed ground to me, you know, it's especially the first two films, you know, they just are. It's hard to go back to that feeling of seeing a movie that is just so different and weird and wild, because that's what Evil Dead 2 was. It was just out there. And and even though the gore has gotten, you know, with CGI, they can do impalements and they can do great bloody stuff, and really cool things that look good. Something gets a little bit lost. But so it's not the same vibe, but I know that. I know it. What I do know is Lee Cronin knows the Evil Dead. There's a lot of winks to the Evil Dead. There's a Buick in it, not the Delta 88 that we know from all of Sam Raimi's movies, because he used to own one. I'm pretty sure, because I drove by his house in Silver Lake in 1990, and he had a couple of those out in front of his house. I think it was his house. But there is a Buick Roadmaster from the 90s, which is that big honking, you know, station wagon. That's just an awesome, cool car. And it has, you know, there's the demons are yelling "Dead by Dawn," and there's some other stuff that winks to the Evil Dead fans, and that's really fun. And there's some good, well-directed stuff in this. It doesn't hit the same way that other earlier film did, just because it can't. It just can't. We know what's coming. Um, but overall, a really good horror entry. If you like gore cranked up, you know, it's it's a worthy viewing. There's a couple of red herring jump scares. I hate those, but they're in there. There's no and Bruce Campbell. See if you can figure out what Bruce Campbell is playing in this movie. You know, gold star if you can figure it out. But Evil Dead Rise is fun. It's fun. And you do feel a little bit for the characters. You go, oh, these poor, you know, this family, just because this dopey son does something stupid, you know, life goes to shit in one night. I mean, in a couple hours. Anyway, and there's an epilogue that kind of goes back to the prologue. So it has a sort of a framing device, which means there'll be future Evil Dead films. I think this did pretty well at the box office, got good reviews. So you're probably going to see Evil Dead Rise, maybe Evil Dead Rise Again, or Evil Rise, Dead by Dawn, or Dead by Dusk. Maybe Dead by Dusk. I'll give that a shot. Okay, kind of a daytime Evil Dead. That could be fun. Okay, everybody. Thanks again for watching these Patreon videos. Thanks for being a patron of Cinemondo. We really appreciate it. And feel free to comment here on Patreon about any of these videos, and more to come soon. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Take care and have fun. See you movie. Bye.